Welcome to the Digital Dreaming Off the Gridiron podcast. It is a beautiful Saturday here in Northern California. I am joined by my co-host of the most, Cortez Branch Jr.
What
out
up?
in Chicago. What up? What up? And we are going to read this episode will be actually a lot we have to unpack. We have to recap Raw. We're going to recap SmackDown. Obviously, Crown Jewel's 2 weeks away, but obviously, I actually want to start off with the main event of tomorrow, the Super Bowl 58 rematch, the Kansas City Chiefs versus the San Francisco 49ers. So ultimately, Cortez, last time we are on here, you predicted 27-24. I predicted something like around 21-17, maybe even less than that. How are we feeling heading into tomorrow? Because now essentially the new news is that Ricky Parasol, the Niners' first round pick, is actually cleared to play, and he's been practicing all week. Mike Dana is injured for the Chiefs. I'm not sure who else is out. I think obviously they have their injuries with Rashee Rice. They have their injuries across the board. I want to say with their receiving core and some of the secondary. But obviously, what are you looking forward to tomorrow, and how are you feeling about your pick that we made earlier this week?
I think I'm gonna stick with it. I mean, I know the Rashad coming back is going to be big for them, but I think it just adds up to the same overall score. I do think that Kansas City loses this game, and it's not because I think that the 49ers are far superior to them. That's not what I'm saying at all. I think it's going to come down to a little bit of hard nosed football, and Kansas City's got to lose sometime. This is probably the
Yeah.
best chance for it to happen anytime soon.
100%. No, I mean, Casey has to lose as Niners. And, honestly, the challenge we made, challenge I made to the defense, to the Niners, offense, to the entire team, after the losses that we made on many previous episodes, I think this is really the toughest test of the regular season, in my opinion. Casey coming to town, a team that you've struggled against, a team you haven't beaten the last four times you played them. Last time you played in the regular season, they came here and they blew your doors off, 44-24. So obviously, no CMC, right? I mean, Christian McCaffrey's injured, so it's not necessarily a disadvantage though, because KC, they haven't looked as convincing in their wins. Obviously, they've won games, with referees, close calls, which can be argued, but I'm not going to look to the refs on this one. I'm going to look for the Niners, because you're at home playing the defending Super Bowl champions. You need to take advantage of this and make a statement. And if there's any chance to make a statement, now is the time. If there's any chance for Brock to solidify himself as an MVP candidate, now is the time. If there's any chance for Kyle
Yeah,
Shanahan to solidify himself as a head coach and a lead head coach in the league, obviously, then I agree with the players and coaches are saying that this does not eradicate the loss from the Super Bowl. However, there is a statement to be made. Emmanuel Acho said it best on the facility on FS1. Brilliant job he does over there. He doesn't care how it looks. He doesn't care what the final score is. The Niners have to come out and win this game. Period. So, obviously, I mean, we both have narrow margins of defeat. I've seen some narrow margins of defeat for KC. I've seen some actual blowout margins of defeat, which is surprising for the Niners. But I am not gonna. I mean, so far, so far, what I've seen the Niners put on tape this season, I mean, this is obviously, Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo, they came out with high praise for Brock Purdy, the offense, Kyle as a head coach and as a play caller. These are the two top teams in the NFL for the past 5 seasons, and it looks like they're going to continue that trend. It could be argued if the Chiefs weren't around, the Niners would have already have won 2 to 3 Super Bowls by now. But essentially, obviously you do have a Jordan and you do have a Brady, and now we have Mahomes. So Niners, this is your chance, players, coaches, everyone, and obviously all Niners faithful who too subscribe to the channel of the 122 Mighty. I mean, we're all feeling the same way. This is the opportunity
well,
to take advantage. You go ahead, please.
it's not it's not just that it would absolve them because it wouldn't absolve them from the loss in the Super Bowl. I don't think anything
Absolutely
does that.
not. Right.
I believe that what it really comes down to is if an organization needs you to be better than the guys that they think are the best,
Mm-hmm.
and they tolerate one loss, two loss, three losses, it
Mm-hmm.
starts to get to be a little bit grating because these guys aren't unbeatable. They've been beaten before. And it's why can't we beat them? Which is as good as everyone says that we are. Why can't we beat them? And it turns into, well, maybe we can't beat them because we're not good enough or we're not coaching them well enough. And that's when you say that the coaching issue has to go over and it needs to be fixed if that's the problem. They can't they can't lose this game. And I don't think that, I think if they lose this game, the perception in the public changes of the 49ers from one of the elite teams to elite team, but not as good as the other ones. And that would remind you of the New Orleans Saints playing against both the Indianapolis Colts / Peyton-led Denver Broncos and Tom Brady and his Patriots. And I think that was the thing that they were always going to talk about is, yeah, Drew Brees is good, but he's not as good as Brady or Manning. And that's something that you don't want to happen to your team or your quarterback.
Yeah, and I mean it's funny. It's interesting you mentioned Drew Brees. I was actually my little brother was bringing up the point today because I mean he posted Patrick Mahomes pregame presser from the Chiefs media where he basically said I mean playing the Niners basically two of the best teams in the league and between himself the Chiefs and obviously Niners and he said you strive to play the best. It's going to be a big game for them. It's regular season. And he's like I'm looking forward to this challenge. It's going to be a great game. I mean, one of the things that my younger brother brought up was that, I mean, obviously the Niners' perception, what you mentioned, right? Of,
Yeah,
Kyle Shanahan from the national media, basically being a great play caller. Brock Purdy, his status as an elite QB in this offense, really what it comes down to is, I personally think Brock Purdy is elite irrespective of the offense. I think if he has any coach, obviously I think Brock Purdy will succeed. And Steve Young has been on record to say, he thinks that, Kyle Shanahan and this offense can definitely make things go together, but my younger brother brought up the point that, Drew Brees, right? I mean, Drew Brees, was a great QB for how many years, but, I mean, he was only able to win one championship ring.
yeah,
Whereas to your point, Peyton Manning and Tom Brady were winning Super Bowls year in, year out. Tom Brady won 7, Peyton Manning won 2, Peyton Manning made 4, Tom Brady made 10. So you're talking about 14 Super Bowl appearances between the two of them, which is just insane. So, obviously, I don't know if there's another, if there's a 1B out of the AFC right now. Obviously, I think Josh Allen might be making a case for that. You obviously have Joe Burrow has been the Super Bowl, Joe Burrow, and then obviously Patty, right? Mahomes,
yeah,
right? The Chiefs. So,
yeah,
I mean, to the point, I agree. I think perception will definitely, I mean, it's not I don't know if I want to call it a legacy game, but it's definitely stakes are high because of the fact that this is not a team you've beaten. When you played them the last 3 times, they've beaten you. They've beaten you in different ways in the last 3 times. They've beaten you in overtime, in a close, chippy battle. They've beaten you in a blowout, on your own home field. And they've beaten you just from a fourth quarter collapse, the first time you ever played them in the Super Bowl. And so, I mean, really what it comes down to is, sense of, again, back to leaders, right? Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, George Kittle, Trent Williams, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, and obviously now Brock Purdy, you know, set the tone, establish some leadership, play with some pride, play with that sense of urgency. You and I have been harping on that for how many since the season started. Here we are, week 7,
yeah.
man.
We're
Sense
we're
of
at that
urgency.
point now. We're at
We
that
are at
point.
that point. Absolutely at that point. This is the time, obviously, because after this, Cowboys come to town. That's a pretty winnable game, I think. Then obviously heading to the bye week. But if you win this game and if you beat the Cowboys next week, the first 6 games so far look kind of shaky. But guess what? If you manage to eke out this win, and if you manage to beat the Cowboys next week, you are sitting at 5-3, which is the exact same record you were sitting at last season heading into the bye.
Yeah,
So obviously last season there wasn't a Minnesota. There wasn't a Detroit. There was a Detroit, but there wasn't a Minnesota like just being
yeah. It was
running
Minnesota
undefeated.
wasn't. Yeah, Kirk
But
Cousins got injured. Or at the beginning of the
yeah,
season, Minnesota was doing great, and then Cousins
yeah,
got injured, and then they just fell off after that.
exactly. And now obviously with Sam Darnold at the helm, they look like a completely different team. And obviously Brian Flores, in his first year as defense coordinator, I mean, he's made that team play like a bunch of all pro defenses, how they swarm to the ball. And actually, yeah. So obviously, you know what? I mean, I want to wrap up, this pre-game preview for the Niners, which just was saying, obviously as fans, I mean, we can accept the fact that the Chiefs, are a superior. I don't want to say they're a superior one organization, but I mean, honestly, at this point, they've proven that, right?
Yep.
But if the Niners want to salvage something from a legacy, something from a title, something from losing these games, and something to build on, for us to believe that they actually are a Super Bowl championship team, this is the time to do it. So yeah, we'll see tomorrow. Let's go Niners, and let's actually transition over. I want to talk about another big game. What we talked about: Detroit at Minnesota, or I think Minnesota, Detroit. I forgot which one. the two teams leading your division, the NFC North. What are you looking forward to in this game, and who do you think comes out with the win?
I'm gonna say that Detroit is probably the team that needs to win the game more.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case of a team needing to win the game more, who's at home?
I don't know. I forget. I forget if it's Detroit at Minnesota or Minnesota at Detroit.
I mean, they're going to be similar environments,
I mean,
but
both of those home fields are very, very rabid. I want to say those fan
yeah.
bases are just
And then like US Bank is such an intimate feeling being inside US
oh
Bank.
yeah,
Like I've
absolutely. I
played in
mean,
there, and it's such an intimate feeling.
right, exactly. So yeah, I mean that game. I mean, what I'm looking forward to is seeing. Obviously Aiden Hutchinson's out. So Detroit's going to probably have to make a move for an edge rusher before the trade deadline, and obviously Minnesota is undefeated. They're playing. They've been playing good. I mean, but their divisional games have been tightly contested. The divisional games. Obviously against Tampa Bay. I believe that was what. No, sorry, Tampa Bay. It was Green Bay. It was 31-29. I think Detroit, since they just they basically blew out Dallas, at Dallas. I think Detroit needs to go into Minnesota if it's at Minnesota, or even if Minnesota, if even more so if Minnesota's coming to Detroit, even with the injury of Aiden Hutchinson, Detroit needs to win this game.
Yeah,
They
Detroit
have to
needs to
come
win
out.
this game. Like they need to be on top at this one.
Yeah, I mean, if you are truly trying to take the next step of making the NFC Championship and you're trying to win the Super Bowl and show that you're the best team in the conference, you have to be the best in your division to start. And currently, right now, the best team in that division is Minnesota by record. We can argue whether or not their record speaks volumes. Obviously, they've beaten the Niners, they've beaten some quality teams, but Detroit, obviously, in my opinion, had a tougher strength of schedule up to this point. So yeah, I'm gonna go Detroit even with the loss of Aiden Hutchinson. I'm gonna go Detroit 21 again, same score, 21-17 over Minnesota. I think it's gonna be a tightly contested defensive battle. And Jared Goff and Jameer Gibbs and Jameson Williams, Amon Ross St. Brown, Sam Laporta. It's going to be, the offensive playmakers, to kind of, ride the back. And I think Detroit's offensive line might be the difference maker in this game because Detroit has one of the best ranked offensive lines by both pass protection and run protection. And it's been like that since Dan Campbell took over. And you know what they say, I mean, championships are won and lost in the trenches. So I think Detroit, I mean, and that was evidenced by Brock Purdy not being able to have a half a second once Colton McKivitz or Spencer Burford, whatever, or Jake Brendel, blew their blocking side in the Super Bowl. If he had half a second more time because they let Chris Jones go on block, he would have had Brandon Ayuk wide open for a touchdown. And we may be sitting here with San Francisco 49ers being 6-time Super Bowl champions. So I cannot stress the importance of offensive line enough. I think Detroit's offensive line is elite and superb. I got the Lions winning against Minnesota 21-17 tomorrow. So
I think I might up the score a bit. I might say it's going to be 21-28
oh wow, there we
Lions.
go. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
touchdown.
gonna update it. I'm gonna up it a little bit. Like to be honest, they might even score more than that because both teams are averaging over 30 points. So it might be more than that.
Yeah.
But I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna play strength versus strength and say there's two strong teams playing each other. And because there's two strong teams, I think the score might not be that high because they both have sound defenses. A lot of times you'll see two offensive juggernauts going at each other and they put up lots of points. But usually if two teams have strong defenses, there's not going to be a lot of points in the game. It'll be an interesting looking game and nobody's going to be super frustrated watching it, but it's going to be back and forth for the most part. I see that game going back and forth for the most part, unless I do think that Detroit has an ability to completely demoralize a team, whereas I don't think Minnesota has that ability.
Yeah, no, I mean Detroit's proven it. Minnesota's on the up and up. So, this is really, again, this is a prove it game for Minnesota, I think, in my opinion. They
Yeah.
have beaten the Packers, but that game was by 2 points. And I don't think Jordan Love was playing that game. I think in this division right now, I think Detroit, like Tom Brady said after the post game last week, he said Detroit is the best team he's watched all year. And there's a reason for that. So you got to go with the GOAT. I'm going with the Detroit Lions. I think they're going to win 21-17. You got 28-21. All right. So now those are the major marquee matchups for this coming weekend. We'll be back on Monday to kind of recap NFL. But let's talk about Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown for this past week. Some pretty blockbuster segments, for some developments. We're gonna start from the top with Raw. Obviously, Raw opened up. Rhea Ripley coming out, a continuation what you and I talked about last time of that women's kind of debacle with Tiffany Stratton interrupting her promo when Rhea called out Liv. And then obviously then Liv basically coming out with Raquel and Dom attacking both of them, and Adam Pearce making the match between Rhea Ripley, Tiffany Stratton against Raquel and Liv, for the main event. And I think Raquel and Liv won the main event. I'm not sure. Can't remember. But anyways, what was your take on that segment, and what are you looking forward to? Oh, sorry. Yes, I believe Raquel. There wasn't a winner. I think Nia Jax came and interfered the main event.
There was no winner.
There was no winner. There was a DQ, right? So, what is your take right now on this multi-tiered kind of crown jewel angle between?
This is probably one of the best women's angles I've seen in a long time. Because I don't know about you, but I haven't really been able to get into anything Bayley in a while.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm an Irish fan, so and so Bayley has a lot of love, being from Northern California.
She goes to the games all the time.
She goes to all the games, hugs, daps up with Kittle, takes those pictures. You know what I mean? So
I like Bayley, but it's just her storylines haven't really been that good over the last year, maybe some change. I mean, she's doing her best with what she's got, but in this storyline, this is actually a good storyline. They've taken a superficial story and they've made it multi-tiered to the point where you don't know if Tiffany Stratton is a tweener, if she is a heel, or because she's behaving like a heel, but she's getting face reactions, especially when she's going against other heels. You want to cheer for Tiffany because the other heels suck way more than she does.
Right.
You kind of give Tiffany a pass. So she's kind of getting a little bit over more so by playing this role that she's been playing, and no one forgot what she's capable of. Nobody forgot how she came there. Nobody's forgot what she's capable of. But seeing her be able to use personality, even if she's acting in personality, the character that she's playing, this version of Tiffany Stratton, is exquisite. On top of that, you have some of the greatest character development from Nia Jax that we've ever seen. I'm going to say Nia Jax is doing her best wrestling right now. She's got a litany of moves that she's using. She's way more agile. She seems to be a much safer worker. She deserves to be the champion right now, and they did her right with this championship run. Do I know what's going to happen after this? No, and I think that's what's so great about it. You don't know what's going to happen after it. You have no idea. Right. You don't know if she's going to win. You don't know if she's going to lose. And then you add the element of Nia having personal beef with Liv Morgan just because she wants to guarantee that Tiffany gets a title shot versus a guaranteed win. She's willing to. And think about the stakes here, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you are an equivalent title holder and you have another champion, if the champion says, I'm going to help you take out the person who's just like me on the other show, if you only care about being champion, then you kind of want another champion's help. The biggest champion that they have right now, the strongest champion that they have right now, the unstoppable force. You kind of want to have that on your back, especially the way that she ran through the women's division when she came back.
Right.
So you add that element to it. So does Tiffany feel bullied by Nia? If she feels bullied by Nia, then she's going to turn on her. But if she feels as if she did Nia bogus, which let's face the facts, at the beginning Tiffany did, and I don't think Nia ever forgot it. And if she's like, okay, well, I'm going to hold that grudge here, and she decides to hold that grudge with her, then it's going to end up like that. But that's where the beauty of this comes in at. Because on Monday night, Nia took out Liv Morgan and basically gift wrapped the championship victory to Tiffany Stratton until Raquel Rodriguez grabbed the briefcase and pulled it out. Briefcase. She pulled out Liv. My bad.
Yeah. Actually, Dom pulled out Liv. And that is kind of, but I think kind of, you saw Tiffany, she hesitated a little bit though. I noticed that, and I think that's by design, because
that's by design. She hesitated, am I going to do this now?
Yeah. Am I going to do this now or am I going to cash on Naya? Because to your point, the way Tiffany's taking it right now, I do think they're playing those seeds and they're setting it up. They've been setting it up for some time, but I mean, you kind of
Yeah,
see it. Like Tiffany is like it's almost like a Dave Batista type of thing with evolution. It's almost like like we've seen in throughout history in the business, right? Someone is a
yeah.
lackey, you keep them as a lackey. At a certain point, that lackey's had enough. you know,
I
at a
mean,
certain point,
look at what happened with H and Michaels.
Triple H, lackey. Shawn goes out with a back injury for 4 years. Shawn comes back. What happens when he comes back? Triple H and that old DX reunion. And after that, Triple H attacks him.
Yep.
And essentially, then then it sets up a great one of the greatest feuds ever on these, in my opinion, between two former. I mean, their friendship augmented that feud because they were able to bring out all that from 2002 to 2005 or 2002, 2004, whenever it was.
Yeah, because I remember that from back then. I haven't watched it in a couple of years, but every couple of years I'll go back and watch the entire thing all over again. And
Yeah,
if you guys didn't grow up watching them, they were the best of friends on television and in real life.
yeah.
And to see like them throw out some kayfabe, some real life things, because if you look at any of the documentaries, they'll tell you. Even Triple H says there was a time where I couldn't even get through to him. I didn't talk to him for over a year at one point.
Right. And I think that was because Shawn was so kind of caught up with all the drug abuse and his own personal demons, and obviously being on top of the business, right? It's kind of difficult at that point where you can't because see, the problem is once you're on top, and especially when you're on top in a self-destructive manner that Shawn was, right? When he was at his peak in the 90s, you lose touch with reality. You know what I mean? You really lose touch with reality. You lose touch with your friends. I mean, his whole relationship with Sonny was self-destructive, and until Sonny told him, "No, I'm not going to marry you." I mean, that was where the Shawn began to right the ship because until Sonny had done that, he was basically on a self-destructive path to where he probably wouldn't have made it past his 35th birthday, in my opinion.
Well, it's
Because
funny because you mentioned that Sonny is the one that told him, what she did, and
yeah,
it's like the one of the most self-destructive people will tell you that you're being self-destructive, and it lets you know. It's kind of like, hey, if this person who's on a train ride to hell is telling you, hey, you should probably get off this ship, and I'm not trying to get on the ship with you. Your train might be going a little bit faster, even though hers is farther than yours. And
right.
she's telling you this. He's like, wait a minute, Sonny saying this? This one? This one is saying this? Like,
yeah.
okay, I really need to, fix myself.
Yeah, no. I mean, once he broke that off, I mean, yeah, to your point, I 100% agree. Then he was able to kind of get clean and become a born again Christian. And then obviously, but yeah, to your point, yeah, that's kind of it. Like when you have those roots, it really matters. But obviously, the Nia and Tiff isn't that deep. They just introduced it this year, but I agree with
Yeah,
everything you said about Nia's run. I totally agree.
yeah,
One of the best
it's got
runs,
elements, man, and it's one of the best runs
yeah,
she's ever had.
one of the best ones she's ever had. I love the not just the wrestling, but her acting too. We're getting into SmackDown after we finish up the Raw recap. But I love her acting with Anna Pierce because she's able to be distressed, funny, obviously she's a heel, but you see elements of her kind of throwing tantrums. I'm like, I didn't see this
Nia's
before.
like Nia's always been a likable heel.
Yes, but I think the issue was because the safety of her working. That's what all the fans, everyone complained about.
Yeah,
Because so many women got injured when working with Nia, but now, like you said, she's improved so much, both in her work rate as well as her mic skills and her
yeah,
promo
she's
work.
wrestling every week again. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
she's not just running through chicks; she's actually wrestling the matches.
exactly. I mean, Steve Richards came out last year and he basically called her out for that dog shit. He called it dog shit, literally. You guys watch the video where basically, Nia basically did the bonsai drop and she basically let go of the ropes, right, on Ray Ripley. And so
Yeah.
basically, Steve Richards said that was a lack of safety and a lack of
Oh yeah, she
execution.
smashed Rhea Ripley. Like that was.
Yeah, but I wonder if Rhea wanted that. You know what I mean?
I
Maybe,
think
but then
Rhea
I'm
was the
saying
type that like make it look real.
right because Rhea is obviously one of the best. She gives the fans a show every time she steps out there. She's also one of the best women's
She
wrestlers.
would be a hardcore wrestler if she was, and if they
A-
really utilize women's hardcore wrestling in WWE, she'd be a hardcore
a-
wrestler.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
Same
But
with
anyway,
Damian
sorry.
Priest.
Yeah, Dame Priest, and I want to actually now we can segue kind of to the next segment they showed, which was the Judgment Day backstage. They talked about tag team, and Damian Priest and Rhea also kind of had a little moment before her match in the main event. Damian Priest, basically Damian said like he asked Rhea if you want me out there. She said no, I'm good. And then she said, Damian, like she's like, remember what we talked about? He's like, what do you mean? And then she's like, you already destroyed the Judgment Day. You've already beaten Finn, at Bad Blood. Now basically take back what's yours. Take back the world title. Focus on set your sights on what was yours for claiming. Then he said, you know what, you're right. But he said, you're my family, and I'm also going to wait. They shared a hug, and that was a really wholesome moment. I kind of like that. But I was going to say that, it was interesting because Damian Priest is now coming to his own where, he needed to be part of a faction. Not to say he wasn't a good worker before Judgment Day. He was a phenomenal worker. But up until WrestleMania 38, when he joined Edge and they basically still formed the Judgment Day, and then obviously he got his push to become a main event, world champion. I didn't know if they were ever going to make him a world champion. I mean, he was also one of my favorite workers even before he came to WWE. But now, obviously, now he's coming to his own where like he gets pops, man. I mean, the crowd was cheering that backstage segment between him and Maria. And I'm looking forward to see what happens with Damian. I mean, like, there's a lot of different directions they can go. They can keep him with the Judgment Day. Yeah, go ahead.
I think what happened is we just saw a soft reset of Damian Priest's goals, not his character, but his goals.
Right,
and,
right.
I think that was a soft reset of that.
Yeah.
Like they're basically saying that Rhea Ripley's storyline is still entangled with the Judgment Day, but you probably won't see too much Damian Priest Judgment Day stuff anymore. And it's mostly just because like that chapter is over for him. He's going to go not at the bottom of the line, but he's going to be added to that list of main event players that are trying to get that title. He's going to be added to the Seth, the Punks, the McIntyres. He's going to be added into that list of people, and even the Chad Gables. He's going to be added into that list of people that are trying to get that title, and it's good. That's good for the show because there's a lot of pay-per-views, really big pay-per-views coming up, and there are a lot of big matches that involve multiple main event players. There's nothing as bad as we talked about this before. We talked about Elimination Chamber. There's nothing as bad for a show than knowing that there are not main eventers in the ring with main eventers.
100%.
And people don't understand that. Like, for example, this is no shade against any wrestlers, but if you put Otis and Tozawa in a tag team match against the Tongans, there's no way in hell that anyone thinks that Tozawa and Otis are going to beat the Tongans. Sometimes they beat them on a SmackDown or a Raw.
Right.
What's up, baby?
And to that point, I agree. I think Owens and Tozawa, basically, I mean, and sorry, Otis and Tozawa, they had a match on Raw, to kind of talk about. But I mean, I was going to gloss over. I mean, they had a match against the Viking Warriors who made the return, but I agree. I think the tag team division is kind of lacking. I mean, Judgment Day tag team champs are not really believable. And you mentioned American Made. Obviously they also had a promo that they come on Raw.
Said that. Adam Pearce said, well, I mentioned American Alpha, but I mentioned Chad Gable. But Adam Pearce said that on Raw last week. He was like, "You guys need to defend these titles." Like,
right, but then I think
you don't need to worry about Damian Priest. You need to defend your titles.
Right. So, but to your point, which is really massive, I just think like you're right. There's levels to this shit. You know what I mean? Like if you put a Tozawa and Otis in a match with, let's say, the Usos or the Street Profits, I mean, it will be entertaining. Like they actually had some of those matches, like where they had Chad Gable and Otis, as a heel faction up against Street Profits and Ricochet, whatever. They dance and Chad Gable will dance, and it's comedic relief, but it's not like a believable, credible build. But I think to your point, Damian Priest, man, sky's the limit for this guy now. I'm really happy to see him in this position where he doesn't need to have a belt to be over. And that's the psychology of the business. That's the psychology of the business. Sometimes you lose the belt and that elevates you even more. You get more over. You know what I mean? So
I mean, Sammy really got more over when he lost the Intercontinental title.
He did. Like now he's in the world title mix, and you believe him as a world title contender because he had a 5-star match last week against Gunther. We're gonna get into Gunther in that segment in a bit now. I just want to kind of recap, finish up all the other segments before we talk about the Cody and Gunther competition. Bronson Reed had to sit down with Adam Pearce. Bronson Reed basically said, Adam Pearce said, like, you remember we talked about it? And Bronson said yes, and then basically Bronson said, like, I've brought chaos, and that's what I thought you want for your superstars. And Peter said, yes, it is, but there's a way we do this. And Bronson said, there's no way to do this. It's the only way I was able to get your attention. I want Seth, make the match happen. Adam walks off the set. Then the next segment, you see Adam and Seth backstage. Seth basically says, there's so many young up-and-comers coming for me. Bronson is now the new up and comer coming for me. He's like, I was one of those up and comers, but you know what? I have to teach this kid a lesson. This big bad bully kid, this monster, right? So basically, now this is now Seth and Bronson is, in my opinion, foregone conclusion. Either they're going to do a Crown Jewel, or they're going to do a Survivor Series. I think Crown Jewel, but I think somehow Seth is going to be re-injected with CM Punk or Drew. I forget which one, but
I
I don't
mean,
know which one
CM
actually.
Punk's gonna come back and be a part of the title scene.
He is exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
And he's taking time.
he's done with Drew.
Yeah, he's on with Drew. And Drew actually, it's interesting because I don't think Drew or CM Punk were on the show last night, on Monday. I don't think I
No,
saw either one of them.
CM Punk's at home in Chicago.
Yeah, CM Punk's at home in Chicago, but I didn't see Drew on the show at all.
No, Drew
So I
wasn't
guess
on the show. Drew wasn't on the
yeah,
show.
yeah,
He's
because
probably
I
recovering
guess
too.
yeah, he's recovering from the Hell in the Cell. So
Like we haven't
I
seen
mean,
Drew since Hell in a Cell.
yeah, we have not. So I mean, that's
I think
that's
he's
how
on a tour though, isn't he? He's on a tour with he's on that same tour with Jey Uso and that's why they were in California because he's on that tour with Jey Uso that the house show tour.
The house show tour, yeah. So, but yeah, I was gonna say, back to the point, yeah, Seth and Bronson Reed's gonna come up, and pretty much, I mean, we'll see what Bronson and Seth, because one thing I love about wrestling, especially like you mentioned, main event guys, I also love contrast of styles, and
Well, I don't think Seth wins this.
right. Well, and so that's fine. Exactly. So like, what that's, I guess I'm not really focused on the finish and what I mean. Yeah, obviously it's going to do wonders for Bronson's career because Bronson's overdue. He's been in a title mix for the U.S. belt a few times, the IC belt a few times. He's been in the World Heavyweight Championship contender a few times. He's never actually won anything. So like Bronson, obviously, like this actually works well with this character, right? To kind of go after the big dog, which is Seth Rollins. Monday Night Rollins. So with that said, whether Seth wins or loses, I'm curious to see how this match is because Seth, I've seen Seth actually wrestle. He wrestled actually when SmackDown came last year. Seth and Gunther was basically when Seth was world champion and Gunther was just with Kaiser and Giovanni Vinci. That was the after show kind of dark match, and it actually went. And that's actually the most viewed video. If anyone's interested, you can watch Seth's kind of whole promo from the SmackDown last year on the YouTube channel. It has over 4,000 views. Back to the point. Seth Rollins basically with Gunther, like when I watch him perform, he's able to kind of curate his performance to his opponent. That's what makes him so great because he's so versatile in how he's able to adapt. And what I was saying about contrasting the styles, Bronson Reed's a very athletic big man, right? You have Seth Rollins. You have an athletic big man. This is going to be fucking fireworks, bro. I'm hyped because I can't wait to see what they put together on the ring. I mean, I'm sure they're already kind of going through it, talking about rehearsals backstage. You know what I mean? But I can't wait to see this match. I'm hyped. I'm hyped, bro.
I want this match to happen. It's been a while since we had like a Taz type character.
Right.
And Bronson Reed is very much a Taz style character.
And yeah, go ahead.
We need like a hard nosed guy like that's gonna be on the top because the bleeding heart baby faces aren't the only reason why the business works.
Right.
And everybody can't be a bleeding heart baby face. And like Gunther's a heel, but like Gunther's a classy heel. We need like a street guy, like not. And I don't mean like in the negative sense. I mean like a guy that's just like if you mess with him, he's gonna beat you up. We need one of those guys.
Yeah, you need a credible tough guy heel.
You need one of those guys, and I think that Bronze can have a very successful, title run, even a world title run, as this character. And I think it would be very interesting the amount of people they throw at him to try to get the title off of him. The running thing wouldn't be when is his title reign gonna end? No, it was, hey, who's gonna beat this dude? Because this dude has got a stranglehold on the division. And I would see him as being the type of guy who he's not going to sit in the office with his title belt. No, he's going to come down to the ring and beat people up, make people not want to fight against him. Like when they have a number one contenders match, he invades the match and beats them both up.
Exactly. No, he could be that powerhouse champion. Yeah, go ahead.
Like, and it bothers me that like just over the last couple of months, outside of the Bloodlines feuds, like in the Attitude Era, one of the things that was very convincing, and even on the other channel, WCW,
yep,
is when the heels were gonna interfere in a match, they did not just interfere in the match. Like they didn't just run down to the ring empty-handed. They brought their favorite weapon, their signature weapon, and then they used their signature weapon to put you down. Like all this extra stuff that they're doing that's unnecessary. If Triple H for Shawn Michaels, it was a chair. For Triple H, it was a sledgehammer. And they turned, same with Rob Van Dam. They turned chairs and they turned personalized weapons into part of their character, to where you knew if you saw that sledgehammer come out, you were going to lose that match, and
Right.
everybody else knew it too. And the fans were just anticipating him using that sledgehammer, or Michael's using that chair, Rob Van Dam throwing the chair in your face and then kicking your head off.
Right.
They anticipated these things. The Eddie Guerrero self chair shot.
Yeah.
They anticipated these things to and the crowd's just waiting and waiting, and then the spot hits, everybody loses it because they love that spot. I think that the one thing we're lacking is the heels of today's era. They come down and they usually get their asses kicked.
Right.
By the faces. And I'm like, no, take a chair, smack him over the head, or the back now, smack him in the back with the chair, knock him down, whatever, put him out, and then have the other heel hit the move, and then pin him 1, 2, 3.
100%. No, absolutely.
We don't need more DQ finishes. We don't need more. Rep didn't see this. I mean, you're supposed to hit the chair shot and then or whatever, hit the thing and then hit the thing. But you're coming down empty-handed and getting your butt kicked. Like, that's my only criticism of the way that they're handling the run-ins, is the face champion or champion like character beats the crap out of all the lackeys, and then he goes at the main guy who runs the group. That's not how things used to go. You never were going to get to the guy at the front because you weren't going to get through the waves of people that he had protecting him.
Right. Yeah. You mentioned the attitude right here, Bischoff and Heyman, signed by Eric Bischoff, and there's Vince right there.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I agree. I mean, like, attitude was really great. And, obviously, like you said, WCW, Sting, NWO, like you said, it was very unpredictable and that's what actually set wrestling over, basically putting over the bad guy heel with Hogan and the NWO, and then obviously putting an anti-hero with Sting. And actually, if I'm not mistaken, no, I am not mistaken, because I watched 2.5 hours of this footage. If you guys are interested, go on WWE. I think it's WWE Flashback, I want to say, the YouTube channel. They basically, WWE has a YouTube channel where they have like a full playlist of Sting, and kind of like the evolution of like introduction of the Crow Sting, and kind of how it started from 95 all the way to 96. NWO came, and then basically 97, which was where they were teasing, either Sting would come as part of the the NWO, or maybe he would back off. He had those segments with Luger as part of WCW, and then Jeff Jarrett. And then that's what made WCW so much better, because you did that, like you said, that element of surprise. You just didn't know when these interferences would happen, when these heels would kind of, and Hogan held that belt for a long time. He didn't give up that belt for a minute, and but Sting ended up taking it from Hogan. I forget, was it Hogan or Brett? I forgot. I think it was Hogan at Starrcade '97.
I think he took it from him.
Yeah. And then basically, Sting was what kind of put WCW. Sting was in conjunction. People give NWO all the credit, but really people gloss over the fact that it was the anti-hero Sting that was kind of being planted, throughout those 83 weeks. That was really what helped.
It's Sting's heel turn was overdue.
Not heel turn, face.
Yeah, it was overdue.
Yeah, face turn. Yeah, face turn was overdue. His character evolution, that change was overdue.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because he was a good American boy. Then he changed over to the Crow, inspired by.
I mean, he was one of the Ultimate Warriors.
Yeah. Him and the Warrior were. I think I forgot the name of the tag team. I
think it was called the Ultimate Warriors.
No. They were called the Roadrunners. That was the tag team. Yeah. Or Blade Runners. That's what they're the Blade Runners.
They were supposed to be like the Mad Max style characters.
Yeah, and for anyone who can't see, I have Ultimate Warrior signature right there. I have Sting right here next to Stone Cold Steve Austin. My two kind of guys.
I would have liked to see them work together again.
Yeah, I mean, Warrior was in WCW for a bit. Warrior was just not interested in the business. I think that was the issue. Warrior,
he wasn't interested in the business. Like, he knew what his profession was, but like, you could tell his heart and soul wasn't behind it anymore.
Right, exactly.
He always had erratic promos, but they got even more erratic in WCW. Like, they were almost unintelligible.
Right, and I mean, that's who. That's the Warrior's the Warrior. Whatever. I mean, recipes, Jim, but. back to the point. Yeah, I really think you're right about kind of that. And back to the kind of what we're talking about, that heel, like, I like Bronson Reed. Now let's talk about another, we're talking about playing seats for heel turns. Let's talk about Xavier Woods. And because obviously Kofi had the match with Braun Breaker. And then obviously I think Braun won, if I'm not mistaken. And then basically then he went to
Yeah,
attack Kofi.
Braun beat Kofi.
And then basically Xavier Woods came to help Kofi, but you saw they had a little backstage segment with kind of, where basically Xavier told Kofi, you told me I'm going to be the QB. And so far, I'm not feeling like I'm able to run the plays here, basically with how, like, Kofi told him how to conduct himself after the loss to Jey Uso.
Yeah, and then Jay comes and saves them.
Jay comes and saves them. I mean, I was actually looking to see Xavier attack Jay after he came and saved them, but he did not. Maybe they're saving that, but I like I mean, they're probably going to drop this.
I'm not convinced yet. Remember, I was telling you about this a couple of weeks ago. I'm
not convinced
we're going to see a real heel turn. I think this is like a heel turn light.
Yeah, it's a heel turn light as of right now, but I think it's going to reach a boiling point. I do think there's going to be a heel turn coming. I think Xavier.
Because Kofi's going to turn too, or you think Kofi's staying face?
No, it's because understand. Let me tell you why. Xavier, the third wheel, right, of the New Day. It's Xavier Woods. He was King Xavier for a minute, but tell me, what can you really think about from Xavier's moments that's separate from the New Day? We have championship Kofi. We have Kofi Mania, right? We have Big E beating Bobby Lashley to become world champion. Who's the third wheel? Who's the odd man out? It's Xavier Woods.
I'm going to tell you. Xavier Woods used to dance with the Funkadactyls.
He did. Exactly. So tell me, I mean, he's a seasoned veteran, right? Like, you have all the stuff of, like, obviously comedic bits, great memories for fans, but not necessarily like a strong solo world champion character. And I think the frustration's mounting, and I think it's gonna happen. I see no other. Yeah, I see no other way out.
I mean,
I see no other way.
It has to, because
it has to.
Even if the thing is, I kind of feel like his heart isn't in being a heel.
Yeah,
but I think that in order for his character to gain traction, he needs a heel turn. He's been a face for like a decade.
Right. And he's never been a heel, I think. I mean, he was a heel with the New Day.
They were heels when they formed the New Day.
Right, and even then it was kind
of probably about 2 years, but they weren't the type of heels that like get heat.
Exactly.
They were the type of heels that you laugh at, but they don't have any heat. Like, everybody loves to see them. Like, everybody loves to see them, but like, they were heels, but everybody loved to see them. So every time they came out, they tried to do heel stuff. People were just like, yeah, we're vibing with. That's what turned them face to begin with.
Right.
Because they were just heels.
And so that's exactly why, I mean, when I look at Xavier Woods, when I look at kind of, this angle and kind of, what's going to happen, I do think it's, I don't know how, but I think before the end of this year, Xavier is going to turn on Kofi. And I think Xavier is going to be a full-time heel. And I think Xavier is going to be getting a major push. Another guy we talked about who's going to be getting a major push, we actually saw them cut a promo. They weren't on the show last night, but they were American made.
Xavier can really wrestle. He can really wrestle, man.
Of course he can really. Xavier was one of the best performers in the business. I mean, come on now. I mean, why has he? His frustration is visible. Like, like he said, like, he's like,
if you remember, Xavier Woods was technically the leader of the New Day, and what stopped Xavier Woods' rise was his illicit activities with former
with Paige
champion and his friend who was dating that champion.
We gotta go there.
I mean, the Usos went for it on live TV one time, and that was funny to me. They made the reference on live TV, and the whole crowd was laughing because everybody knew what it was about, but they weren't going to say it out loud. It was unscripted. It was great.
It was great, yeah.
But that's why he got nerfed, and I think that he's finally able to like overcome that stigma because people aren't talking about it anymore.
Well, also I think like Paige has actually also come past it because now you see she's a women's champion in AEW, and so I mean, like, I really think that all parties involved. I mean, I forgot who the third guy was, but I mean, all parties involved with that whole kind of that love triangle.
Brad Maddox.
Brad Maddox, yeah, and I don't know where he is now. I mean, he had like
he got a job. What do you mean?
Yeah, he's out. The truth of the business is, if you have talent, you'll have staying power. Xavier Woods has both. So like I said, I mean, the odd man out, the third wheel, the guy who's gone the short end of the stick in the New Day is Xavier Woods, and now it's finally coming to a point where he is now basically going to say, motherfuckers, fuck y'all. I'm Xavier Woods. I won King of the Ring. I'm a former U.S. champ, IC champ. You know what I mean? I'm not just a mid
Yeah,
carder. I'm a guy who can work. Like this, I am looking forward to seeing. Like you said, we talk about great heels. This is going to be, in my opinion, probably one of the greatest heel turns in WWE history that we're going to see with Xavier Woods. So I'm very excited for this. Um, Now, obviously, talking about other heels, Chad Gable, right? Obviously, American May had a promo on Raw. It was okay. I wasn't really, again, it's not believable without a belt. Chad, bro, get a belt. You're tag team guys, whatever their names are, get a belt. The chick, whatever, get yourself in the mix. Like, if you
Heavy
want to
Nile.
be whatever her name is, yeah, Team Angle, bro. Like, if you want to be Team Angle, you got to have the belts like Team Angle. You see this? What's on my shoulder? It's an American made strap for the World Heavyweight Championship. What's on your shoulder? The U.S. Championship. Like, come on now. We need to have championships. And your belt was actually the belt that Team Angle was the U.S. belt during the run of Team Angle. And ironically, none of them actually ever held that belt except for Shelton. But
Angle
it's interesting.
Championship right here, y'all. The Angle
Yeah, exactly.
Championship. Well,
Angle champ.
actually, the person who got this championship introduced was Elijah Burke.
Right. Well, no,
When he
Elijah
was with
Burke. Well, I mean, when they
yeah.
brought him. Yeah, it wasn't Elijah Burke. It was
Orlando Jordan. My bad.
Orlando Jordan.
Orlando Jordan.
No, he wasn't
But
the one though. It was Eddie and Chris. It was Eddie and Chris. It
Eddie
was
and
back
Chris, yeah,
2003.
because his
Yeah.
belt was there, and then Cena changed it, and then they changed it back.
Yeah. So Cena changed it, and then they changed it back, and then because Cena went after the world title, and that was
Because this is
history.
the version 2. The version 1 had the actually no, this is the version 1 because the scratch
That's the
logo.
version 1. No, version 2 is right here. Well, I wore it last week. Let me take it out, guys, so y'all can see this. This is what my co-host is astutely alluding to. Now we're double strapping.
Yeah, that's version
This
2.
is this is the version 2, the John
And
Cena
then
spinner
version
belt.
3 is the one that has the network logo because this has the scratch logo.
Right. So version 3 was basically the same the same plates, but just the logo changed in the center.
Yeah.
So, but like the one you have on your shoulder, that's the same one that they brought back. But
yeah,
no, I mean, again, I think this is going to be close out the Raw recap because obviously, you had Miz and kind of R-Truth, and then obviously, and I sorry, before
I'm
we
not
close it out,
into the Miz R-Truth feud.
I'm not interested in that. AOP, they look kind of lost when they came out of the ring. And then lastly, I wanted to say, obviously the Jimmy, right? Kind of the whole thing. And because this is now going to, it's perfect segue to SmackDown, right? Obviously, Jimmy confronts Jay backstage and he tells Jay, like, we need your help. And they said, and then Jimmy says, nope. He's like, no, he's like, get out of my face, man. That's it. And then he said, and so that, and that's pretty much it for Raw. So I think the overall show is good. Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. How did I forget the confrontation between Cody and Good? Come on now. You got to be honest, Carlos, with the most. You got to tell me.
So I was about to go there. I was about to text
Yeah.
it to you, but the Cody.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know, want to spend too much time on this because it's
Okay.
going to develop more. And but just to give my little 2 cents on this, I think that going into this, Gunther has to believe that he's going to win. I think that Cody is portraying a character that is more annoyed with Gunther basically focusing on him because Cody technically can't focus on Gunther because of what's going on in his own title picture. Cody has to deal with 2 tribal chiefs that want that title back.
Right.
And to be honest, like, they've done a very good job on the other show, which we'll get to. They've done a very good job of showing that Roman wants his title, but Roman also wants his title back.
Yes, both.
He wants
to
be the undisputed tribal chief and the undisputed champion. That's what he wants. And we'll get there in a second. But Cody can't forget that he has Solo coming after him. He's got Roman coming after him. And he's got a slew of other people who are also coming after him for his title. And while Gunther is, Gunther about being better than Cody, I don't think Cody is portraying the character that, hey, I'm the champion. I'm the champion. I'm annoyed by you. And I think that you need to take a step back and just have the match. Whereas Gunther's like, it's cool. I'm just going to beat you really quick.
Right, and I think kind of, and I just want to actually, let me actually rewind to the segment itself. So obviously, Cody, Cody comes out, obviously like for the crown jewel, and then Gunther comes out and interrupts him, and obviously then you see the kind of back and forth, and Gunther then tells Cody, he's like, most of the time I usually get my opponent's head, I'll bring back one of their unsecured truth or their uncomfortable truths. But he said about you, like he said to Cody, he said for you, he's like, I actually don't have one. He's like, you're one of the few people in this industry in the biz I respect because of you. Like, the company has built itself on the back of your shoulders to now where we are in a boom period, which is accurate. Now, like I said multiple times, now WWE has the highest attendance figures since 2002, and that's largely to the fact due to the fact of Cody and the Codyverse, right? So Gunther brings in that kind of reality with the kayfabe, and then but then he brings up the KO thing, like you mentioned about people coming after Cody. Gunther brings in the whole KO, like your friends kind of going at it and this and that, and you saw that visibly irked Cody, and then Cody then comes back and says, you know what, Gunther, he says like because Gunther then calls Cody a secondary champion. He said Gunther, he's all like, I forgot what he said actually, what he said about Gunther's championship, something like that, like, not be ready, but something else about like Gunther, like, like, yeah, like you better be like your best because, I'm going to bring you something like that. So I thought that segment was cool. Obviously, like, the crown jewel belt is a very illustrious
It's
belt.
beautiful. It's
It
a
is
beautiful belt.
fucking, it's a beautiful belt.
I
Yeah.
think all the people that are online that are just hating that another belt got created, but I get it. Some people don't like title belts.
Yeah. I
I don't
mean,
think it devalues anything. I think it's a trophy, and I think that's one thing that Triple H is transforming in the business is that
mhm.
the belts are no longer just for champions. They're trophies, and you might not wear a belt. You know what I mean? Like it might not be the championship title, but
Mhm.
it's a trophy for winning whatever you won. You're gonna get a trophy for winning whatever you won. You might not be able to defend the trophy, but it's a trophy for whatever you want. And I like me personally for individual championships, I like belts a whole lot better than I like regular trophies. That's just me. I like a belt
Right. No,
better than a trophy. I really do.
I mean, you guys can look behind me, but like, I have a full case of these. Let me count actually. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. I have 12 belts, guys. And so pair that with the autographs I have. Obviously, I've had the fortune and privilege of having many pro wrestling guests on the show over the years. I've had the fortune and privilege of meeting them in person, like Godfather Rikishi. But like, to the point that my co-host made, like, belts or trophies, I love that belt, and I think there's some value to it. But I think to your point, yeah, I mean, like, yeah, Gunther's coming to his own as a heel. He and Cody basically is gonna. I think Cody's gonna win, get over on Gunther, because Gunther got King of the Ring in Saudi. Now that they're gonna go back Saudi for Crown Jewel, I think they're gonna want to make Cody be like the true undisputed champion, unless they want to elevate the world title on Raw, which is the actual, in my opinion, not in my opinion, in everyone's opinion, the rest of the community, the actual secondary championship, which is the world title on Raw. Unless they want to elevate that belt, I don't know what Triple H is thinking. Maybe he'll have Gunther get over and win the belt. We'll see. And so I'm looking forward to that.
I mean, the best way for me to say this, the only way that everybody wins is if the bloodline takes out Cody and Gunther wins because of it.
Yes, because then that sets up Survivor Series. Now
That's the
let's
only way
segue. Thank
everybody
you.
wins.
Thank you. I want to, because now we can segue to SmackDown. Perfect. 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 All right. My man said the bloodline. What happened? SmackDown opens up with a promo. Roman, Jimmy, Solo, Tama Tonga Loa, Jacob Fatu, Jay. I mean, they just went through the whole montage of Roman being champion, Jimmy being champion, Roman losing. Then obviously, then Solo and the bloodline running roughshod over SmackDown. Then finally, Bad Blood. Obviously the build up to Bad Blood with Cody. Then obviously Jimmy's return, and then obviously the promo from last week. What we talked about at length last week when Jimmy basically said, "When we not the ones though, right?"
Yeah.
I see a sheep without tribe. I see you without your Olafala, this and that, and obviously Solo and the Bloodline winning that match over Roman and Jimmy last week. So then we basically segue into opening up of SmackDown, where you have Roman and Jimmy, you have Jay, basically, and basically, Jay Uso actually comes out and confronts Solo, because Solo comes out with Tama, with Tonga Loa, as well as as well as Jacob, he basically cuts a promo saying that, Jimmy, like
Yeah,
he was recapping Raw, like that Roman and Jimmy need to get help. They go to Raw, and Jay says no, and then Jay comes out in the crowd, he yeets, and they basically says like, man, you're my little brother, I love you, but you're dividing the family, and essentially, like what you're doing, like like if you want to take power for Roman, I'm cool with that, but like but don't divide. And so counters back and saying, I'm not dividing, I'm unifying, right? And essentially, like only like you and everyone else, like he's like he told Jay, stop calling me your little brother. Hey, I'm your tribal chief, and you need to acknowledge me. That's what Roman needs to do too. And then basically, then Jay said, acknowledge you, nah. And then basically said, like, he's like, then he said, if you're trying to unify, why'd you get the Tongas? Why did you get Jacob Fatu? And then Jacob. Then he said, then he looked at Jacob and he said, yeah, Jay, yeah. He's like, yeah, you keep looking at me, I'm gonna knock your ass out.
yeah.
And then the
Like
crowd,
it shows that like there's always been tension in their family.
correct. And that is beautiful, intelligent storytelling, because what that means is that, yeah, of course, the family, you stand together, you stand on business, you have each other's back, but you get to this point of where Jay is coming out, confronting his own younger brother, who's the self-proclaimed tribal chief now, and Jay is questioning his tribal chiefness, I guess what a chieftain. So, that was I thought it was great. And then we segue back to Roman and Jay and Jimmy, and then obviously Jay and Jimmy, they meet, but then Roman meets him, and then Jay's about to walk away. Roman grabs Jay by the arm and he says, "Hey, listen, I'm proud of you." And then Jay then says, "Whatever, man," and he walks out. And then basically then they segue to another segment between Jimmy and Roman backstage, where Jimmy says like, "Man, we need him," and Roman says, "I tried, it didn't work." And then Jimmy says, "But we need him, else we can't win." And then Roman says, "Are you my wise man now?" And he says, "No, I'm not your wise man, but you need to talk to him." And he said, and so then basically said, "Ah," he's like, I'll talk about it." And so I want to just pause there because I think that's a good kind of stopping point, because what we saw was, like you said, there's inner conflict within the bloodline itself, which is kind of what we saw, even at the bloodline's peak, bloodline civil war and everything. But now you basically have it where obviously Solo has his version of the bloodline. He has control of them. But then basically, the OG bloodline, they're really kind of at odds. And, I think it's kind of a good kind of segue, because you and I talked about how are they going to re-inject Jay? Because I was kind of, I was cautiously pessimistic about Jay coming back in, being a Raw champion. But now with Crown Jewel coming up and having the crossover brands, with the champions coming over to fight each other, I think it's really smart, how the timing of this. Timing's everything. So, guys, sorry, you're going to say something? So go ahead.
If I'm being a smart booker,
Mm-hmm.
then I don't try to put The Rock against Roman right now.
Correct.
If I'm being a smart booker. If I'm
Mm-hmm.
being a smart booker, I would have Jimmy go to get Paul.
Heyman.
And I would have Jimmy have a conversation in private with Paul about going to get The Rock. And then I would have Paul go and talk to Jay, because Jay respects Paul. And I would have Jay turn down Paul. And then I would have Paul go and get The Rock, and The Rock confront Jay. And
Wow,
I think that because Jay is always using The Rock's moves. And you know that, like, the one who looked up to The Rock the most was Jay. He's always talked about that. And
right.
Jay was just seen using the People's Elbow at a house show last week. And they
I saw
all
that
on YouTube right now. And
yeah,
Jay
I saw
does that. Like Jay will do the rock bottom sometimes. Jay will do Jay's punches when he does the Rock's, and the Rock's look at his hand and then punch. Jay does that all the time. You know what I mean? And it would be great if The Rock came to get Jay and said and talked to him in private and said, "Look, your family needs you, and you might have a beef that you need to squash, but your family needs you." And The Rock essentially throws his weight behind Roman, not as a face, but as a heel. And you know that there's one heel in the group, and that will set the tone. And they help. The Rock helps bring Jay back. Jay and Rock really don't want to be a part of Roman's bloodline, but they know that this is what's best for family business, because Solo and the Tongans are loose cannons. and they need to rein that in. No pun intended. I think that would be the best way to not end cap this story, but to take this story from being all over the place and speculation to this definitely has a direction now, and we want to watch this direction play out because I think that's the one thing the story is missing is I think they're doing a good job of giving us week to week television, but part of the story is getting drawn out, and we don't really need that. Like we don't really need too many times of Solo beating up Roman.
Right. And I think kind of to that point, I'm going to actually go a different direction. I think they got Paul Heyman, and then Paul Heyman can appeal to Jimmy or Jay, rather.
Jay.
I think they leave The Rock out of it intentionally up till like we get to the Royal Rumble. I think that makes the most sense. I don't think we need to see Rock before the new year. I think we had got the glimpse of him, but we don't need him to come back. I think what's going to happen is I perceive the bloodline, Jay, Jimmy, Paul, kind of, coming back together and then basically unifying to fight against, the new bloodline, at Survivor Series. And I'm predicting the OG bloodline to get the win, to get over. Because obviously, like, we saw the main event, obviously, the main event was just a Roman kind of segment to acknowledge Solo. And obviously then Solo then said, and Roman refused to acknowledge Solo as a tribal chief. He basically acknowledged him, and then Solo said, "No, acknowledge me as a tribal chief." And then Roman said, "What?" Then he said, or what are you gonna do?" And then Solo said, "Oh man, what's the problem?" This that. And then he started playing mind games. Obviously, then they showed them beat Jimmy. I think The Rock is gonna stay as a heel, but I think he's going to be. What's going to happen is the OG Blood are going to get the upper edge on the Solo and those guys, and Rock is going to come back to help them because really, I mean, to put this bluntly, outside of Jacob Fatu, the new bloodline is lacking star power. Yeah,
Well,
Solo's a really. You go ahead.
The Tongans probably should not have debuted as bloodline members so fast. And I think that if the Tongans would have debuted and been like, we don't know if they're a part of the new bloodline, I think they would have been able to, like, Solo being Solo and like not looking like he doesn't know if he controls them or not. But I think they injected them and expected everybody to just accept them as bloodline. But I think Tama Tonga's entry to the bloodline should have been not jumping Jimmy, but it should have been sticking around Jimmy and Jimmy being irritated with him.
Yeah. I mean, kind of like JD McDonough
gave them more credibility.
Kind of like JD McDonough with Damian Priest when he joined the Judgment Day, because JD McDonough was basically a fucking little irritating, shit stain, and Damian Priest couldn't stand him, right? And that kind of planted the seeds, for and I agree with you. I think that would have been better. But it is what it is.
Always funny. Our truth was always like, JD, you're not a part of the Judgment Day.
Yeah, JD, you're not part of the Judgment Day. And so they can go. We'll see where they go. Let's end it with that. I mean, let's see where they go because I like what they're doing with it. I think you're right. We don't need to have a Solo beat up Roman every week to get over. I think the reason for that is because they're just lacking star power. When Roman comes out on the mic and he says, "Acknowledge me," I mean, the crowd's Roman is so mega over right now. I mean, I don't understand. Like, I wanted to say this about both Raw and SmackDown. I mean, yeah, Cody. I mean, Cody had, and let's talk about Cody's segment. So Cody had a segment on SmackDown. He basically comes out. They have the actual crown jewel belt, in the middle of the ring. He wants Gunther to come out, have a face to face, this and that, and then basically, like, and the crowd says, "Thank you, Cody." Because Cody basically, he acknowledges the crowd that they basically, in St. Louis, that's where they basically, started the "We Want Cody" chants, and started the Cody movement for WrestleMania of this past year when The Rock was announced as the first contender and the crowd wanted Cody. So essentially, back to the point, with Cody, kind of with Gunther and all that kind of stuff, right? I mean, if Solo doesn't have the championship belt, it's kind of hard, because what made the McMahon Helmsley faction so great? Triple H was a world champion. What made Evolution so great? Triple H was a world champion. What made DX so great? Shawn Michaels was a world champion.
And then Triple H in the second DX.
Exactly. So that's the problem right now. The blind doesn't have star power.
No, because Solo's not a champion.
Solo's not a champion. Yeah,
'Cause
and I
remember
don't
they
know.
basically erased his title win
They
in
did.
NXT.
So they did, right. And so I think now essentially that's where I think The Rock came back because, you see, like, I think this inner conflict, you're going to need someone like, one of those quote unquote elders to come back like The Rock to kind of establish peace. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see where they go with that. So, anyways, now let's move on. So, obviously,
They
Cody
could
challenge.
they could make The Rock an arbiter and say, okay, The Rock is not the tribal chief, but he's the high chief.
Yeah, and like I say, like I sorry, that was my original point that I lost my train. Like Roman is so over right now. He doesn't need anything on him. He doesn't need a belt. He doesn't need anything. He doesn't need the Olafall. He doesn't need that shit. Of course, when you saw that moment where he grabbed it, at the end of SmackDown, last
And
night,
put it on.
it's like
Yeah.
they put it on, and then obviously then the low blow from Solo, and they obviously stand over him. Like the crowd, I mean, wow, you know what I mean? Like that was, that's magical. You know, yeah,
You can't
Roman taking
replicate
back,
it. You can't replicate it. I
yeah.
would use like you said, I would use The Rock as some type of arbiter. Like, hey, I'm trying to be in the middle of this, not necessarily
Yeah,
on
well,
either side.
I mean, The Rock is, and here's the thing: The Rock actually is he owns TKO. He's one of the owners of TKO. Like he needs to be,
Yeah,
he's on the
and he
board.
actually is the high chief.
Like literally, like he's the
Like he
eldest
is the
one.
high chief. Look, like
He's the
if
most
you guys go
decorated
like his
member.
family, like
Yeah,
outside of wrestling in his family, he is the high chief in the family. Like everybody knows that. That's public
yeah. Like
knowledge.
Rock is literally the most overstar, the most popular megastar in the history of pro wrestling. Like, what 400 million followers on Instagram, almost $1 billion in net worth. All of his movies make over 100 to 150 million dollars. Like, I mean, this guy is
He's
a
still
boss.
making money.
Yeah, he's still making money. He has Fast Five coming out, Fast 11, whatever is coming out in April, right? So, like, The Rock doesn't like. Yes, he is the guy. Like, so that's why he's there to kind of set order. And I think it makes sense to have him come back to the Royal Rumble. But yeah, it's interesting to see where they go with that. But I just want to say the Bloodline storyline and Roman Reigns is literally like, I'm not trying to take away anything from like either show, but I think outside of like maybe Seth Rollins and Cody, I guess Gunther, right? And I guess Jay and LA, of course, LA Knight, right? There aren't really too
Yep.
many, like, there are, I mean, there are there's a lot of talent. We haven't seen wrestling's talented, but like, those are like those are like my mega stars right now. And so these champions, as well as kind of, yeah, these A-listers, I guess Drew, you can put them in there, Damian Priest, I guess. So yeah, anyways, I really like this. I like to see what I like the blind storyline. We'll see where that goes. But Cody let's talk about KO. KO is kind of, doing that kind of, those segments. He finally kind of released a statement to WWE, and they basically say it's ridiculous that they're barring me from contention. Like just because I ambush, he's like, hey, the people ambush each other all the time. Like he's like, I shouldn't be suspended. And then basically, then Randy, and then he called out Randy. He said, like, one thing is for Cody to go on behind me, but for Randy to do that, he's like, I can't believe that. And then Randy went into Nick Aldis's office, and Randy says, I want the match with Cody. Sorry, not with Cody. I want the match with KO. And then Nick Aldis said, I can't. And Randy says, no, I'm not asking you permission. I'm telling you I want it. Give it to me. And Nick said, Randy, I'd love to. I can't. It's coming from high above. Then Randy said, okay, then I know who I need to talk to, which tells me he's going to go Triple H. so,
Exactly.
so, which is ironic if you kind of think of it from long perspective, because Triple H was the one who helped KO become the Universal Champion 8 years ago.
He gave it to him.
He gave it to him, right? He did a celebration. So, what is your take on this whole kind of KO kind of? It's almost Attitude Era-esque, where like he's going up against cancel culture movement and this kind of setup now between Randy and KO.
I think that Triple H has people that he likes that he worked with in NXT,
Mm-hmm.
and he brought them to the main roster. He liked them even more, gave them mega pushes, and
Mm-hmm.
he created some stars. And I think
Yeah.
that guys like Kevin Owens, who are already stars on the independent scene, Ring of Honor especially, Seth Rollins, CM Punk, these guys are Ring of Honor world champions,
Right.
and Triple H honed their craft even more as they became
Mm-hmm.
even greater world champions on the main roster. And Kevin Owens, the storyline of Kevin Owens not having a major championship in many years now is I think the last time KO was champion was when Jericho was here.
Yeah. Literally.
5 years ago. 5 years
No,
ago.
8 years ago, bro. 7 to 8 years ago.
7 to 8 years ago. Oh yeah, that was Jericho's last full-time run in WWE.
He left in 2017. It's been 7
Yeah, the
years.
Festival of Friendship and all of that.
Yep.
You know, we always saw him in doing appearances on the anniversary shows. Jericho didn't wrestle on the anniversary shows. He's doing a couple of appearances. You know,
Jericho.
everybody gotta
Oh,
love Jericho. You know,
yes,
and
sir.
I think I think that it's Kevin Owens' time to like reemerge as like a contender for a title. And I mean, like, I think that contrary to popular belief, I think that KO and maybe should put Cody down before WrestleMania.
That's fine. I
I
mean,
think Cody should win it back. I think he should win it back before WrestleMania. But I think that KO should be able to put him down for a short title run before WrestleMania.
yeah, that's fine. I mean, they can do that. I love KO. I was a fan of him when he was feuding with Roman back in 2020, 2021, and he almost won the title from the Royal Rumble. Then they botched that finish. For Paul Heyman had to basically like open the handcuff for Roman.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I
Does
don't know.
do you think that if Cody doesn't run the gauntlet from WrestleMania to WrestleMania, that somehow worsens his title run, or do you think that if he loses once and then gets it back, then that solidifies his title run and defends it at WrestleMania?
That's a good question. What do you think about that?
Because think about it, Cody hasn't had a break since he came back from surgery.
Right. And it's funny because he actually mentioned John Cena's schedule when he came back. He also mentioned his daughter, and so I mean, he was actually there's a little bit of shooting in there with his kayfabe when he came out to challenge Gunther. Hmm. Um,
Like,
I
what if KO
guess
runs the title for a couple of months?
nothing wrong with it, but I think this is just what I think. I have no problem with it personally, but I think Triple H is looking at it from the optics of okay, Roman had the belt for 4 years, and so if they take the belt off for Cody before WrestleMania, even if it's for like a month or two, it's gonna all the detractors are gonna basically, are basically say, look, Triple H made a mistake. And I don't think Triple H wants to admit he made a mistake. He did not make a mistake, number one. And number two, I think it's a really important situation to have Cody have that continuity. But I would love to see I'd love to see KO, or I'd love to see Cody basically have the belt. I mean, I guess I have no problem with it. I can see them losing at Survivor Series, winning it back at Royal Rumble or something like that. You know what I mean? Or something like dropping at Rumble, winning it back at Elimination Chamber for WrestleMania. That's fine too. I mean, either way is fine. I mean, I really don't care. So we'll see what they do. But I mean, I just
Yeah,
think,
we'll see. Like, we'll see.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think Triple H is kind of like that mindset, like, okay, like we have to match 1-to-1. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Like,
So.
there's an overwhelming wealth of talent, and you can't have main event superstars interrupting the mid card scene. That's where stars are being born. And
Right.
I think
And
that's
so,
something that
yeah,
Triple H is thinking too. I think that for a
correct.
little while, um, it happened at the end of the Hogan era, the occupation era, as I like to call it.
Yeah.
It happened at the end of the occupation era when stars were becoming, more attitude-esque, the new generation. Um,
Yeah.
you had main eventers that were, focused on the Intercontinental title and focused on the US title and all the secondary titles. You had main eventers that were doing that, but it kind of left everyone else out. You know what I mean? And we no longer have a secondary second title. Like for a while, we'd have the European Championship or the Cruiserweight title, titles that actually meant something at the time, or the light heavyweight title, or even the hardcore title. Like there were titles that were in play that were important titles, but they weren't necessarily main event weapons. The Intercontinental title was
Right.
a main event weapon. The and I think it should be. The U.S. title should be a main event weapon. Both world titles should be main event weapons. And I think that that's the one thing that WWE cannot do because of the model that they laid out for like 2 decades. And that's just not having a third title to that meant something. Now I'm gonna ask you this question. What title could they create and have a tournament for and crown a champion that would actually make people feel like this belt is worth having? Would it
That's a
be
good one.
another European championship? Would it be a light heavyweight championship? Would it be the cruiserweight title? What? Because I know that they've considered NXT their third world championship, but It's
Right.
not defended on television on the main event. I mean, the main roster.
Mhm.
But this title
Yeah.
is a placeholder title for a main event match. And I think it should be. That's
Yeah.
what
I
the title
mean,
should be.
right. No, I think they do have the speed championship, and I mean they don't defend that as
They didn't
well.
even have it on television the other night. They talked about it, but they didn't even have it on TV.
Right. And so yeah, I think Candice LeRae is the women's speed, and then I think Andrade is the men's speed champion, and they don't even have it on TV. And I mean, yeah,
Andrade
I
hasn't ran a
love
championship. Andrade's had six match of the night quality matches against both LA Knight and Carmelo Hayes.
yeah,
And he wasn't wearing the title for any of those. He's been the champion the entire time.
right. You're right.
He
So I
beat
mean, I don't
Ricochet
know.
for it, I believe.
Right. I don't know, man. I think if they bring back European Championship, great. I think it helps. I mean, I think both shows are back to being to just 2 hours. So I think that's kind of the challenge, right? How do you fit 2 hours of content with
Exactly.
you know, well, these belts. But I would love to see him bring back the European title. But back to the point. KO is going to be. I'm looking forward to KO Randy this match. I mean, two kind of legitimate tough guys, quote unquote. So I mean, I'm looking forward to that with history. Now you mentioned mid card and other belts. Let's talk about the U.S. belt because LA Knight cut a promo. Obviously, Carmelo Hayes and Andrade are having the rubber match. I think LA Knight's going to be the guest referee. And LA Knight's promos are so attitude era-esque. The way he looks at the camera and the way he cuts it, it's just so much like late 90s or 2000s. It's
And
crazy to me.
the intensity that he brings with his promos is what you need to have as a champion. He makes the US title look like the world heavyweight title, and that's what you want from a champion. Jey Uso is carrying around the Intercontinental title as if it's the world championship. And I think Braun Breaker did a good job of it. Sami Zayn did an okay job of it. And Gunther did a great job of carrying around the Intercontinental titles as if it was a world championship. Miz carried the Intercontinental as if it was a world championship. There was never a second where and that's one of the number one things that I hate right now in sports entertainment is these guys in wrestling are not valuing their belts because it's company oriented. Whereas it used to be, you have to place a deposit with the company to carry this title, even when you win it.
Yeah.
You're responsible for this title. That's why, you know, for those of us that knew back in the day, that's why the Rock and Stone Cold throwing titles in the rivers and stuff like that was such a big deal. Is
Yeah.
because you just cost them 50 grand. And now mind you, the era has changed where money is way different than it used to be. And
Well, yeah. Yeah. And obviously, I mean, it's one of those things. I remember when the Stone Cold Steve Austin threw Kurt Angle's medals into the river. That was that was awesome.
yeah,
And but I think it's interesting because actually Maven mentioned it on his show on YouTube. Maven Huffman basically he actually made more money before the streaming services came out from royalties because he'd make around I think 12,000 to 13,000 a month just from royalties seeing on his ass at home, but
yes,
now he makes around 2,000 I think every 2 months or something like that, which is I mean it's like beer money. So
yeah,
sometimes so I mean he's fine, but it's interesting. But yeah, you're right. It's that was. But then again, Austin and the Attitude Era, like we talked about earlier in the show, that was the biggest era in the history of the industry. And obviously, that's
yeah.
why
Like that title felt like everything. And then the thing is, you knew the title, like they protected it with their lives. You know what I mean? Like they didn't want anybody touching their title belts. Whereas like
right.
these guys leave their belts in the ring and run to like you just left your belt in the ring. What if somebody takes it and won't give it back? That was always a constant danger in WWF back in the day. If you left
Yeah,
your
and
belt, somebody was gonna snatch it.
if I'm not mistaken, I think I remember when Cody when he came out on Raw on Monday, he actually when they showed him walking from his bus out, he actually wasn't holding the belt. But then when he came out to the ring to confront Gunther, he was in the suited and booted with the belt. So I think that's kind of to your point, it kind of cheapens it. I do want to see the world champion with this belt. Obviously, if you run to the ring and you attack someone or something like that, then yeah, it's a little different. But usually, even so this is the point. Back in the Attitude Era, whenever something you mentioned about run-ins and interferences and whatnot, the champion of any championship would come into the ring, run in, and have the belt either just they're carrying it while running or they have it around their waist. You know what I mean? And so that way, you have that visibility of yeah, this guy is a champ. This belt has has some value to it. So if they can bring that back, that would be great. If I'm not mistaken, when Cody, even on SmackDown last week, not this past week, but the last week, when Cody actually came, it was Sacramento. Sorry, just a few weeks ago. When Cody actually came to help out KO against the Bloodline, like Cody didn't even bring the belt out. He was just came out with a chair. Like that was kind of strange to me. Like I would like you said, like he should at least have it on his waist. You know, because like
Exactly.
if you pay for a ticket for that show and you're watching it, like you want to see your champion come out with the belt. And so, anyways, yeah, I mean it's interesting. It's very interesting to say the least. But yeah, I think yeah, LA Knight, not Montez Ford, LA Knight, Carmelo Hayes, and Andrade. Game 7, I guess, obviously, or whatever they call it, the they're gonna have a match, the fourth match between Carmelo and Andrade for the number one contendership. I'm guessing Carmelo wins. I don't know if he gets over on LA Knight. Maybe he gets over, so that way LA Knight can get into the World Championships hunt at some point.
I don't
Uh,
think Carmelo Hayes takes the title from LA Knight.
yeah, I mean
I
Carmelo's kind
think
of
LA
still
Knight is going to be the U.S. champion for quite a while.
yeah, but I think eventually LA Knight needs to get into the world title scene. So
I
we'll
think
see
so
what happens
too.
there.
I think that he needs to have his. I think he needs to have not Crown Jewel, but at um at a Survivor Series. I think LA Knight needs to have one of those matches that says this guy needs to be the champion.
Yeah,
Like he
let's
needs
talk
one of
about some
those high energy matches.
right. Yeah, let's talk about some more tidbits from SmackDown. I think they had the Piper Niven, Chelsea Green versus Nia Jax cancer
It
match.
was a
That was
good
kind of
match.
throwaway.
It was a good match.
It was a good match. Yeah, it was a good match. And then you also had DIY. The what do you call those guys? Pretty
The Yes
deadly. Yeah,
Boys, Yes Boys.
yeah. Yes, boys. Yeah, pretty deadly. And then I forgot who the other guys were. They had that
The
match. A Town Down
Street
Under.
Profits. Yeah, no, A Town Down Under, not Street
Yeah,
Profits.
A
A
Town
Town
Down
Down
Under.
Under.
Yes, I guess that was
Uh,
okay. I mean,
I wasn't really into that match.
yeah.
Yeah, I just wasn't really into that match. Like, I wanted to be into that match, but I just felt like, and this is gonna sound terrible because a lot of guys like them, but I'm just not really into DIY as characters.
Yeah, I'm not into DIY's characters either. I'm not into A Town Down Under. Like
I
Johnny
think they're
Gargano
good
and Tom.
characters, but I think I think that DIY would probably work better as heels.
Yeah, and I think A Town Down Under. Yeah, I guess they have some like chemistry, but I'm not
I
sure
feel like their
if
gimmick is
fans.
just cooked.
Yeah, it's cooked. I don't know.
Like it reached to like it reached its pinnacle a long time ago.
It's interesting because it's like JD McDonough and Grayson Waller. These guys are both my age. But then like I watch them on TV. It's like yeah, they can still move, but they're like, but what they're being situated with, it's not working. Like JD McDonough is not working as a tag team champion. And yeah, A Town Down Under isn't working as a team. Period. Like
No,
Grayson
it's
Waller, in fact,
boring.
yeah, Grayson Waller is much better off alone than with Austin paired with Austin Theory because Grayson Waller effect is a really great kind of segment show. I liked it. It's almost like the highlight reel, the modern day version of it. But I'm not really. I like you said. That whole match was throwaway for me. And I think that pretty much wraps it up. I think you had Bianca Belair, Jay Cargill. They had their
I mean,
kind of
they
little
were just in the
segment.
crowd, right?
Yeah, there's in the crowd during that tag match. So yeah, and Naomi had a match with oh sorry, it was Naomi and Bailey against Nia Jax and Candice LeRae, and then the Piper Nivens and the Chelsea Green they had a match against those other two people. So yeah, that's pretty much wraps the SmackDown. I think that was pretty much all the segments. So I think we pretty much hit Raw and SmackDown. What were your overall kind of takeaways? I guess outside what we discussed and kind of what are you looking forward to? Heading into the next couple of weeks for Crown Jewel and Survivor Series.
I'm looking forward to this Nia and Tiffany Stratton and Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. They're looking forward to their feud.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking forward to seeing CM Punk return. I want to see what happens with the entire Bloodline story, both factions of the Bloodline.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see what Sammy ends up doing because I know he's not done yet. And
Yeah.
it could go two to three ways, man. And they have a great opportunity to book this next show, this next big show in Saudi Arabia. It's going to be nice. I think that they've got things firing on all cylinders. They got the women's division up and running. They got another new women's tag team that just came from NXT, and they're hot. They're really good wrestlers, and they have a lot of personality, and they look to be credible contenders for a championship title. I
Yeah.
think that
Yeah.
all the secondary backup characters are really fleshed out right now. There's not too many characters on the roster that we've been seeing every show, especially with the shorter time limits that
Yeah.
that don't belong on the show. Like there's, I did like the debut of the Motor City Machine Guns. I think Chris Sabin
Oh,
has
how can I
started.
forget that? I'm so sorry. I have to interrupt you. I am so sorry. Thanks, y'all. I forgot the debut of the Motor City Machine Guns. Love the entrance, how they kept the, because me and my partner here, who we grew up in the 90s, 2000s, watching wrestling throughout early childhood, middle school, high school, and college. I mean, Alex Shelley, Chris Sabin. For those of you who did not watch TNA during that time, I mean, the Motor City Machine Guns were one of the hottest tag teams ever, and I completely glossed over that debut. I mean, that was huge. I mean, I apologize, folks. Like, and I'm trying to forgive myself. I can't. So I love their entrance where they kept the machine gun, the like, kind of like you saw the machine gun effect. The work rate was great. The crowd reaction was really what kind of did it for me. I love the fact that the crowd recognized them instantly, and they had a little
Yeah,
backstage
and I
segment with
think
Nick Aldis.
there's a whole crowd that recognizes them. There's also a younger crowd that's like, these guys are kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah. They're both in their
And
40s now, but they
yeah,
can
and
still
I think
work.
that they should have a short title run. I don't think it should be on SmackDown. I think it should be on Raw.
And I think kind of to the point about it, actually, we're not done with the show. I apologize. I apologize to my co-host. I'm sure he has other things he wants to do on Saturday, but we're not. We're gonna have to go a little bit longer because I want to talk about some other stuff. Because now that we mention it, Motor City Machine Guns, right? They come in, the crowd reacts, right? Kind of AEW building relationships with indie promotions. AEW has that kind of kind of reputation, the rapport. Oh yeah, we have rapport with indie promotions. Motor City Machine Guns, were they even on AEW? I don't even remember if they were.
I think they had a match.
Like a match, right?
Yeah, because I believe when TNA was partnered with AEW, they had a match.
Correct, but that's not so. TNA is partnering with AEW, but TNA partners, AEW partners with everyone. Partners with New
Well,
Japan, partners
TNA
with
and
Raw.
AEW don't partner anymore. Their relationship is cut.
Correct, and so I was gonna
Yeah,
say I mean, if you're good, kind of WWE has a bad rap of not being able to get indie promotions. WWE has a monopoly effect. Like, dude, like I don't think Motor City Machine Gun spent a single day in NXT. Like they went straight to main roster. Like if you're good, WWE will put you on
they went
television.
straight to the main roster, just like Jay Cargill.
Triple H will put you on television if you're good. That's what I took away from that debut, and the fans will love you. Like it's not like the Invasion storyline where you had like guys coming over like Buff Bagwell and others who like fans didn't recognize them. Like KO admittedly said like when you watch Buff Bagwell, he's like it's like yeah we don't know who these guys are, and fans are chanting you can't work this and that.
That was the problem. Is like, I'll say this, I feel bad for the guys that did come over during that. And I think that's why Sting didn't want to come over, is because
Correct.
they knew that the minute they came over there, Vince was going to butcher their characters.
Yeah, and I mean kind
And
of to the
he wasn't
point.
going to book them credibly. Like, look at Booker. He didn't book them credibly. The thing is,
And it's
Booker got
interesting.
Booker over.
Right, right. And the thing is, Booker, it's funny because I actually watched Booker's podcast this morning where he talks about Sting's exact statements about how Booker was treated. And Booker said, like, what Sting didn't understand was that The Rock's character was supposed to be like that guy. The Rock is supposed to be this larger life, who the hell are you? I'm better than you, and he's supposed to say that not just to Booker, but to anyone. You know what I mean?
Right, because The
it's
Rock's
supposed to be
"Who the
like,
hell are you?" wasn't
who in the blue hell
necessarily
are you?
right. Like,
Yeah.
it wasn't supposed to be a "I don't know you, you're not a wrestler." It was supposed to be a "I'm The Rock, why are you here?" type thing.
Exactly, because same thing with Jericho's debut 2 years prior. When Jericho debuted on the main roster on Raw in 1999, when he first came over from WCW, we talked about that. Arguably the greatest debut in history during that time. Like The Rock's first thing was, "Little jabroni, you've come on the Rock show, and you don't even have the courtesy to tell The Rock to introduce yourself, properly introduce yourself. What is your name?" And the Jericho says, my name, and The Rock says, "It
It
doesn't
doesn't
matter what
matter
your
what your
name is."
name is.
Like
That
that was The
that's a
Rock's
true
character,
introduction. True introduction,
right?
because Jericho gets to see that The Rock is doing The Rock's thing on The Rock show. And Jericho played in a very good pest for those first like 6 months of him being there.
Yeah, it's so funny. Golly.
He played the best pest. Every time that somebody had a moment, Jericho would insert himself into the moment. Didn't matter who the person was. And then he would cut a legendary promo. A lot of the times they would cut counter promos, but nobody looked weak. Jericho just looked like, there are people who have enough nerve. Because remember, for a while, Jericho's promos in WCW, he was going over everyone.
Correct. But I still think Booker T sold out to Triple H. I think Sting should have called out Triple H because here's a cool irony. Sting ended up going over anyways, later in his career, right? Back almost 10 years ago. He
Yep.
goes over, and who does he face at WrestleMania and lose to? Triple H.
Triple H.
Who buried Booker T at WrestleMania 19? Who we talked about at length and during the Mr. McMahon Part 2 episode.
Why did Sting fight Triple H? Don't you think that it would have been better if Sting fought Taker?
Thank you. Say that one more time, please.
Sting should have fought Taker in that match.
Vince, what in the flying fucking hell were you thinking not pairing Sting against The Undertaker at WrestleMania 31?
And then you had the NWO and then the rest of DX come out and it didn't hit.
They're way over the hill, man. Sting was a staple for two promotions, not one, two. WCW and NWA TNA. If you watch TNA, you watch WCW, you see Sting, applying the the figure four leg lock or the what do you call it, the Sting shooter? What do they call that on Jarrett?
Not the Scorpion Deathlock.
Scorpion Deathlock. Thank you, Scorpion Deathlock. Like Sting would basically put Jarrett on in the Scorpion Deathlock, then you'd hear him because the camera gets close. You are cancer. You are filth, and I will eliminate you from the TNA. And everyone goes, yeah, of course, only 1,000 people, but still, that's it. And like a fan favorite and a pillar for two organizations, and you don't pair him with the other pillar?
You had to pair him. Okay, so you couldn't pair him with H. The only person that would have made a good pairing against Sting would have been The Undertaker. And
that's it.
Not saying that anybody else was undeserving, but there wouldn't have been a point in pairing Sting against Austin. There wouldn't have been a point against pairing Sting against Michaels. There wouldn't have been a point in pairing Sting against anyone but Taker. If you wanted to run the program the right way, you could have had a returning Kane come back and take Sting to his limits. And then you have Sting say, well, I've seen the best this company has to offer. And then Taker dongs as Sting's running down Kane on the mic.
And who did Undertaker even face at WrestleMania 31? I can't even remember.
I think he faced John Cena.
Was that no? That was 33.
Who was 31? 32. 32 was Michaels.
Not 32. Not 32. It was 31. I'm talking about Santa Clara. Yeah. See, you can't remember.
I'm gonna find
out. You have to look it up. Exactly. So yeah, please, while my partner looks it up, let me just kind of reiterate my point, what my partner made. Sting should have faced The Undertaker. Us fans never got to see the match, the dream match. You don't book the legends unless you make the dream match. And what Cody actually talked about,
31 at Levi Stadium.
What Cody actually talked about on SmackDown last night, which was actually really a very, very true point. He's saying, imagine.
Oh man, The Undertaker was against. No, The Undertaker only had an appearance, I think, at the WrestleMania 31. I don't think
he didn't have a match, did he? He didn't have a match.
No.
Was he injured?
No.
So why didn't he wrestle? Why? That's bad booking. Vince. This is why Vince is no longer. Vince is out for this reason. Vince, come on, man. Come on, Vince.
John Cena defeated Rusev to win the WWE title. I think The Undertaker defeated Bray Wyatt. And
WrestleMania 31?
Yeah, and I just don't think that match was supposed to be a passing of the torch match, but it wasn't because Undertaker won.
Yeah, it didn't make sense. I think if anyone was supposed to break the streak, it should have been Roman or Bray. It shouldn't have been Lesnar. And kind of to the point,
they should have held out, and I would have accepted Taker's streak being broken by Sting.
Me too. Give me any.
If Taker wasn't going to retire, you could have had this. You could have had a rubber match or you could have had a rematch the next year at WrestleMania. You could have had Sting go on a hell of a run, maybe not be a title run, but you have Sting go on a hell of a run where he appears once every 3 months until it's time for him to fight the Undertaker again, and then he gets into a feud with the Undertaker the last month and a half before WrestleMania, and that's when you have the WrestleMania rematch. Because let's say that you put Sting in a fake title match for legitimacy, and you say Sting is going to challenge whoever the champion was at the time I think it was Roman. Sting's going to challenge
Mhm.
Roman for the title because Sting's earned the number one contender spot, and then you have
Mhm.
Sting versus Roman in a title match, and you have Undertaker come out and ruin Sting because Undertaker's Undertaker. He's not a face or a heel.
Right.
You have the Undertaker come out and stop Sting from beating Roman, and then the very next week, Sting says, "I don't care about the title right now. I need to fight him."
That's that, and that's kind of it. I think that made more sense to me. I mean, Sting didn't need to have a WWE title run. I mean, they had him like in the mix with Seth Rollins, Night Champions, and a few other kind of promos here and there. When Seth kind of got over, arguably greatest Money in the Bank cash in of all time was at that event. So obviously he was here in Santa Clara, so I don't want to negate all of it, but. The Rock obviously said like he was from the Bay Area, and then Stephanie said, "Yeah, Bay Area boy." Da da da. The Ronda Rousey came out, debuted. So but I mean, like with all those moments, it's negated because of the fact that they missed such a golden opportunity. And I think, kind of to your point, I mean, Sting doesn't need a belt at this point in his career. Sting at this point is 55, 56 years old. Like, he doesn't need to be a champion. He's 55 years old. Like, let the
Yeah, he
guy
didn't
just
need to be a
have,
champion.
let
You
him,
could have used it for attention. You could have brought more legitimacy to the WWE title by Roman having it, because at the time I believe he did. You
yeah,
bring
Rob,
more legitimacy to the title by Sting wanting to challenge Roman for the title, and then you swerve from Sting versus Roman to Sting and Undertaker, and that way not only do you boost that program, but you boost the legitimacy of the title because Sting wanted a title. If Sting wanted a WWE title, it shows because Sting was already WCW champion multiple times and NWA champion and TNA champion.
and you
You
know
know,
what? I mean, yeah, like, I mean, like, belts are used to elevate the guys, but some guys are above the belts. Like, The Undertaker is actually one of those few that's actually above the belt.
he doesn't need a title. Yeah, he doesn't need a title.
Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting, like, because,
But
Sting is
like
also
those
one of those.
guys, I think if Brett would have understood the way the business was working, I think Brett would have understood that you don't need this title anymore.
Yeah, well, I think Brett though. I mean, it's a tough spot because like Brett's all about honesty, and Brett is he's a stickler for trust and agreements, and so I think his issue is that I mean, he can't see past anything when he feels like his trust is broke, which is what happened. He felt like his trust was broken,
Yeah, his trust was broken.
and that was kind of it, and so he didn't want to. And like respect, I think was a factor. I think Brett just hated Sean, and Sean hated Brett. I mean, these two guys just absolutely couldn't stand each other. Like they hated each other. Like you know what I mean? And so like that was kind of, I mean, there was more to it than that. I think that's the only time in Brett's life where he's ever made a questionable decision outside of working with Goldberg. Choose like Brett.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, yeah, like to your point, like,
That Brett match with He Who Shall Not Be Named was fantastic, by
yes,
the way.
yes, it's yeah, it was a great match. It was a great match. So, but back to the point, like Sting, like, yeah, I mean, they've very missed an opportunity. I mean, Sting was actually right on like how they used him. They used him wrong. But then like he didn't care at that point because he was already over the hill. But like he should have came back when he was white hot. I mean, they probably could. I mean, obviously DDP didn't really have like that good. Yeah, DDP had terrible one. They made him a stalker character against Undertaker when he came during the Invasion storyline. But I mean, DDP was much older and then he got injured in 2002. So it's like I mean, you can't really do much with a 45-year-old. I mean, you have too much young talent up on the up and up. You have OVW, churning out these guys like Lesnar and Shelton Benjamin and Cena and Batista who are going to make their debut. So it's a little different, but. I think Sting, if he were to come, he should have came, during the peak of his popularity, maybe early 2002 with NWO. I know we could have seen a lot better segments, but like kind of to the point what Cody said, like what we're talking about, like dream matchups, like Cody said on SmackDown, he said like imagine if Nick Bockwinkel from the AWA fought against Ric Flair, imagine if Harley Race fought against Bruno Sammartino, right? Like now with Crown Jewel, we have myself fighting against Gunther, obviously not on the same level of any of those guys he named, but like he was making a point. Like I agree with that, and that's kind of the point we're making right now with Sting not getting his match with Undertaker. Sting versus Undertaker was the dream match that we never got to watch. We never got to watch, and Cody actually mentioned this too. We never got to saw Goldberg versus Austin. We want to see that too. That would have been great during that time. But slow behold, that it is what it is. But and back to Sting. I was watching the Sting playlist this today. Kind of from the evolution of the early onset of Sting. Kind of started with the Crow character. First when Scott Hall, with 96, kind of talked to him on Nitro. Scott Hall throws a toothpick at him. Sting slaps him. And then basically Sting starts showing like his Crow character, and then he starts kind of waiting the rafters and just watching people talk. Jeff Jarrett, Lex Luger, and then he starts handing people bats like Rick Steiner, Lex Luger, and then basically then Macho Man and all that stuff, and then basically then finally comes to a head in '97 where Sting, with the NWO kept saying, yeah, Sting's part of us, and then basically NWO is fighting WCW, and Sting comes out, holds WCW, and whoops the shit out of NWO, which then leads to Sting versus Hogan. Sting wins the belt at Starrcade. Sting was a single driving force of WCW in the 90s. Sting was WCW, for lack of a better
Yeah,
term,
he
right?
was.
He was. What is your take on the 83 weeks and how big Sting's role was paired with NWO in terms of dominating WWE, WWF, and the storylines and the ratings?
Um, I mean, I feel like this company is driven by like 4 or 5 different things.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember watching parts of WCW where like you just wanted to get to the main event.
I don't know if you want to get to the main event. You wanted to watch the cruiserweights because those are the kind of exciting,
Yeah, like
the
I try like because of WWF and WWE and the way they treat the cruiserweights, I kind of have over the years have just not forgotten about all those great cruiserweight matches, but the cruiserweight division on both shows was fantastic at one point.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
they were definitely a driving part of the show. But like for the main story, especially the later WCW years, it was just kind of like, dude, this is dragging.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And like, I don't care about none of this crap going on. And WWF got like that for years too, where I don't care about any of this. There's only so many matches where I could watch like Tyson Kidd versus Apollo Crews or Cedric
Ah,
Alexander versus, some other like up and comer like Authors of Pain versus Cedric Alexander and a tag team partner. Like there's only so much of that you can take. Or like, some low level female superstar going against like Natalia. You know, I
yeah.
I I don't I can't get into matches that don't have any leverage. And I can't tell you a Natalia match of recent note that had lots of leverage in it. Maybe the last time she was champion, but
Mm-hmm.
and she was a good champion the last time she was champion.
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
But other than that, like there was no consequence or substance behind any of it. And I don't like watching wrestling shows where something feels of inconsequence. Everything on this show needs to feel like it's important. Everything. Like every part of the show needs to feel like it's an important part of the show. And that's why when you watch WrestleMania, everything means something at WrestleMania. You know, I'm starting to get tired of the I saw you backstage, I beat you up, now we have a match tonight. I'm starting to get tired of that.
Okay.
And so it's an easy fix. And I think that it happens on TV more because they need to fill spots and get people in without building too much of their story, so they take them right to fighting. Just fine. But I like a little bit more substance. I think the closer we get towards WrestleMania, the more the substance will pick up. But Roman, you can say Roman carried WWE through the pandemic, and so did Drew McIntyre. You know, you can say that, and it'll be true.
It
Uh,
is true. Yeah,
but
it's absolutely
outside of
true.
the pandemic, you have stars, lots of
Yes.
stars. You have lots of
Cody.
stars outside of the
Well,
pandemic.
okay. And you know what? You just actually brought up an interesting point because you and I are talking about it. Now we get the fun part of the show, the closing segment, which is actually going to be might be the longest segment, but let's talk about it. You anyone who's a AEW fan, you might want to turn off. You might want to click pause and go do whatever you're doing. But pretty sure if you're an AEW fan, you're watching this. I sent you a series of polls throughout the week on text, I believe from WrestleBits, the podcast on YouTube,
Yeah.
where basically the owner of that channel put polls on booking, and he put Vince McMahon, Eric Bischoff, and yes, folks, get this, Dixie Carter in
Oh, you
head-to-head polls.
can, you say
Go
this is gonna be
ahead.
the longest part? This is not gonna be as long
Yeah.
as you thought it was. Okay, let's run this down
Ah.
real quick.
Yeah, let's go.
Number one, we're gonna start at the bottom here on purpose. We're gonna do
Let's
Tony
go.
Khan versus Dixie Carter. Dixie
Yeah.
Carter won by like 80 something percent. Dixie
Yeah.
Carter is one of the worst wrestling promoters of all time.
If not the
You
worst.
know, she had a company that was failing badly during her run, and I think that when she started booking, it got even worse. her trying to be an authoritarian figure when you don't look like it. You don't sound the part,
Mm-hmm.
you don't look the part, and you
Mm-hmm.
just don't fit in that you're not intimidating at all, Dixie Carter. And I think that's why that character didn't work for her. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why she eventually abandoned it. But also saddled EC3 with the same problem, is that him being her corporate heel just didn't work with the fans, and it just doesn't work today. And I think that's why EC3 has so many problems keeping bookings. Unfortunately, the sad that's the sad part of the business. I think that Tony is in worse condition than she ever was. I think that when they booked Michaels versus Tony Khan and Michaels beat him by a landslide, that's pretty obvious. Michaels' show was doing great.
Right.
Michaels' show was doing great after Michaels inherited a show that got changed by Vince to be worse. And obviously Vince was a better booker than Tony. Obviously, so was Triple H.
100%. And obviously Eric Bischoff too, because we're talking about Sting, we're talking about WCW, we're talking about the 83 weeks. The reason I'm bringing this up is AEW is really not, and obviously AEW fan base, there's another poll between the AEW fans and WWE fans, which one's worse, and literally it was 83% to 17% WWE to AEW, meaning WWE fans are much better than AEW. Um, um, I don't understand the tribalism, obviously, you know, I mean, and I'm not here to kind of rip AEW apart, but I am here to rip apart Tony Khan. I don't understand how and why he does makes this book decisions he does. We talk about Wrestle Dream at length. You watched it, I didn't, but kind of going through it blow by blow is kind of like a terrible event. Making Moxley champion for 4 times and obviously not letting them book heels and not letting them book faces. And you kind of talked about it. MJF heel, Moxley heel, Jericho mega heel. We can go down the list. Every single AEW champion in its history has been a heel. And
Yeah.
like the faces, it's Swerve, heel, Joe, heel. Like you're putting heels against each other in these main events. Like I don't understand. Is that edgy? Like is that really what makes it? No. Because like the reason we're bringing up Sting and the reason I'm talking about this, the anti-hero. Like who's your good guy? Like tell me right now because you watch AEW more than I do. Who's the good guy in AEW right now? Who's the face? Tell me.
It's all heels.
Who is the Stone Cold Steve Austin? Who is
They
the
wanted to be
Dwayne
like
The Rock
Darby
Johnson?
Allin. They wanted to be um what's his name? But you haven't seen him on television in forever. The guy that
Who?
like basically is like the mini rock.
Oh gosh, yeah, I forgot his name.
I just did
I mean,
too.
I remember Orange Cassidy. He had like a little kind of he had like a little run here and there, but I lost sight of him. I don't think he's been on any major pay per view event. Like he was on title hunt for like a bit, then he kind of fizzled out. Like he did the pockets routine, the yay, where he like he does little squid kicks, like like that's my point. Like I don't know who is the face. Edge is a face, but Edge, I mean, is Edge who you want carrying your company at this point in his career? Oh, I mean, Edge is
Yeah.
basically rehashing old drama with Christian from like 25 years ago. Like, so what the fuck am I supposed to be invested in? Like, who is your face? Who is your good guy? Why are you booking heels to get over? I don't understand any of this shit. I don't get it. And like, I talk about Tony, like, oh yeah, Tony will listen to you. No. Tony will listen to anyone. If you go on his Twitter, anyone who's interested, go on Tony Khan's Twitter. Why look at his recent tweets? I looked at it this morning. This guy is borderline delusional, if not completely delusional. Like he's talking about every single event, every single show being the best ever. And AEW is making money. I get that. Respect to Tony for putting something. His dad obviously said give him the money, but taking Cody's thing and basically running with it. But like the old Bucks, I'm gonna call them the old Bucks because they've been around for that long. They are holding down AEW. Like these, they are Jack Perry. I don't know anything about him outside of he won Rookie of the Year from Dave Meltzer. Dave Meltzer has a love for AEW, and Dave Meltzer never gave Kurt Angle a 5-star match. So fuck Dave Meltzer for anyone watching this because who's West Ham Observer Newsletter fan. But AEW is not it. And Tony Khan is a huge reason of that. Like Tony Khan is like the worst promoter. How he handles his football team is terrible. Like he basically got money from his dad, who is a fucking mega billionaire. And credits Tony for at least building a company from the ground up, making it a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, which makes over $250 million a year in revenue. And it probably will be around as long as Tony wants it to be around because as long as him and his dad are invested, they're going to keep doing it. But like, It's not. It's never going to be WWE. It's never going to be even close to WWE. Like, I cannot ever put AEW in the same breath as WWE. AEW is where WWE stars go to die. If you're a main eventer and you're good, and kind of what we mentioned about Motor City Machine Guns, if you're good enough, you'll be able to get to the main roster of WWE without having to go through NXT. And Tony's largely to do that. Tony Schiavone, these guys they have as broadcasters are there, but it's not working for me, man. I think JR is kind of faded. I'm not interested. So I wanted to make that point because Sting basically was there.
I'm with you on that, and I'm with you on that. Like everything you said is accurate. I was a big fan. I mean, everybody that watched this show knew I was a big fan of watching AEW programming, and I can't watch it anymore. And I think that says enough. I like watching wrestling. It's not just WWE. I like watching wrestling, but I can't watch AEW because it's not good. Like they have some good wrestling on there, but I want something else. Like just why should I care that these guys are wrestling other than the fact that they're good wrestlers?
Yeah, that's it. You're watching it just for the working. You're not watching it for any of the storylines. There's no storylines. There's nothing there. There's no booking. The booking's terrible, and that's directly because of Tony.
So if you guys don't understand what I mean by this, I want you to turn on a soccer match between two teams that you have no idea who they are. You don't get excited watching it unless you're a soccer purist. But in the Olympics, we will all watch our home countries go against each other and cheer for them and be happy when they win. It's the equivalent of that. You make the match mean more than the match. The level of gameplay is going to be eclipsed by the victory. And if there's no victory to invest in, then why do I care?
Right.
Why do I care if there's no victory for me to be invested in? Why do I care who wins? If I know that, number one, there's no story, and number two, I don't know who's a good guy, who's a bad guy, because both these guys are excellent professional wrestlers. Or if they're both bad guys, what do I care? What's the stakes behind it? Like, where's the blood feud at? And then, like, even the Blackpool Combat Club retiring Danielson the way they did was just like, it's just stupid.
100%.
The person who complained the most about WWE and their wacky storylines finishes somebody's career with a wacky storyline that'll go down in infamy as one of the worst bookings in the history of pro wrestling. Funny that it would be Jon Moxley that was a part of it, and I think I'm gonna leave it there.
That's it. We're gonna wrap it up there, man. No, that's it. Thank you all for tuning in for this extended episode. We covered the NFL for 49ers and Chiefs, Lions and Vikings, the two marquee matches of the weekend. We covered Raw. We covered SmackDown. We previewed Crown Jewel. We talked about Sting. We talked about the Monday Night Wars. We talked about why AEW is struggling right now and our outlook for wrestling. Any final thoughts before we close out this episode, partner?
Nope.
All righty then. Thank you all for tuning in. Once again, DDOG Podcast. We just gained a new subscriber. Thank you, whoever you are. We are now at 122 subscribers. Keep spreading, keep sharing, keep promoting, and DDOG Podcast on X, on Spotify, and you know where to find us. And we'll keep being here, and we'll be back on Monday to talk the fallout of the Niners and Chiefs matchup tomorrow. Hope you all enjoy the game tomorrow. Stay safe. God bless, and go Niners.